Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our second Watershed Wednesday webinar, and thank you to the OCCA for hosting us. Just a few housekeeping things. Please keep yourself muted, and if you have questions, you can type them into the chat box and we can facilitate the conversation that way. So today we have the Upper Susquehanna Coalition's buffer team. Taylor Held is a USC buffer team member and currently coordinates the Trees for Tributaries program within the Upper Susquehanna watershed. Taylor is the contact person for the DEC Trees for Tribs program in our watershed, and she has successfully completed its 5th year here in the watershed. Just another note about the Watershed Wednesdays, these will be taking place every Wednesday through July and August. So without further ado, take it away, Taylor.
Hi, I just want to make sure everyone can hear me.
Yep, can hear you fine.
Yep. Okay, sounds good. All right, so today I'll be going over the conservation opportunities with the Trees for Tributaries program. So to start it off, I'll go over what the Trees for Tributaries program even is. So it's a statewide program run through the DEC, which is the Department of Environmental Conservation, and the Saratoga Tree Nursery. So the DEC is what allocates the money for this program for us to implement, and then the Saratoga Tree Nursery is where we get most of our trees as shrubs from. So next, the program's goal is to plant trees and shrubs to create a forested riparian buffer on public and private lands. And you might be asking how the Upper Susquehanna Coalition even works with this program. It's that we are a partner to provide assistance for these projects in the Upper Susquehanna watershed. So if you have any land within the Upper Susquehanna watershed, we can come out and help. So a riparian buffer is a vegetated area surrounding a waterway. And a wetland is an area where water is present either at or near the surface of the soil, or where water covers the soil all year or seasonally. So both riparian and wetland areas, they are ecotones, which is where the area is sometimes wet or sometimes dry. And so therefore, there's a lot of different wildlife that thrives in this area because due to the unique materials and areas. So there's grasses, branches, leaves, flowers, and then as areas go, there's different types of canopy, understory, and grasslands. So as USC and the Trees for Tributaries program, we look to restore these unique habitats for this purpose and for water quality purposes. So there's many different ecological benefits to a riparian buffer and wetland, and they're pretty much one and the same when it comes to their ecological benefits. So one ecological service is that it slows down and filters runoff, which limits pollutants from entering the waterways, because our native plants serve as great filters for pollutants and sediments. So as you can see from these diagrams, is that the pollution runoff comes downhill, and the riparian area, the vegetation and the roots will absorb the pollutants that are in the runoff before it enters the stream. And then same goes for the wetland, because the water will come down and the contaminants and sediments are filtered out, and when it enters the stream, it's better water quality. So another ecological benefit is that the riparian areas, they intercept and flow water from heavy storms, reducing the instances of flooding. So as you can see, this is one of our sites in Tioga County. It's called Hickory's Park in Owego. And there was a big flood in 2004 where this whole entire area flooded out. But if there was a riparian area that was well developed, then the roots could have taken up some of this water and it wouldn't have flooded as much. Another ecological benefit is that it shades the streams, creating cooler temperature conditions to support fish species. So this is great for all the fishermen and fisherwomen out there. Another ecological service is that it holds soil in place, preventing stream banks from eroding away during heavy storms. And so we plant a lot of trees and shrubs that have deeper root systems because the deeper the root system, the more stabilization it provides. So therefore, if, as you can tell by this picture, there's no well-developed riparian area. So all the soil is eroding each and every year, which causes property loss. So if there were a well-vegetated area, then it wouldn't have had eroded as much. Another ecological benefit is that it provides food and habitat for invertebrates, fish, and other wildlife, which again will help with fishing. And lastly, it provides pollinator plant species, and then also this will attract other pollinators to anything else that you grow on your property. So the Trees for Tributaries program is very lenient, in which our main requirement is that just that the site is adjacent to a stream, creek, river, wetland, pond, lake, or any other water body. So in short, pretty much if there's water, we can plant there. We just advise that we do make the landowners sign an agreement to maintain the planted area. It's pretty much just stating, as you can tell in this picture, oh, I don't know what happened there, 1 second. Just that who will maintain the site is what the landowner's requirement is. So pretty much we just require that there's mowing to be done at the site, so in between the tree tubes, along the rows, weeding, seeing if the plants are alive, watering, and especially we just like to stay in contact with the landowners. So if there's anything that needs help that we can help with, we can be of assistance. So if a storm comes by and knocks down all the shrubs and tree tubes, we can come in and reallocate if we have those supplies available. New shrub tubes to make sure that these trees and shrubs stay alive. And we do know that maintenance needs are site specific, so we're always there to help. So how can the Upper Susquehanna Coalition help implement a riparian buffer on your property? So the Upper Susquehanna Coalition, we only work throughout the Upper Susquehanna River watershed. So that is this yellow perimeter on this map. So if you're in this area, we can help you implement a buffer on your property. And this is my contact info over here. It will also be on the last slide, so you don't need to rush to get it down right now. But this is my contact information if you need help at all. So we support the landowner to coordinate planting logistics in many different ways. One way is that we create planting plans for the area. So we determine suitable species and quantity for the space that you're willing to provide. And just to allocate that, we don't force you to have a minimum amount of space per site. We just will take anything that you're willing to give us that's along a waterway. Site prep. Weed whacking, the landowner doesn't have access to a brush hog, so we'll come in and weed whack your area if need be, and invasive species removal. We'll help with planting, but we do try and get our landowners to plant the sites if they can, but if not, we can be there. Delivering and supplying trees, shrubs, and materials to properties. So as you can tell on this gator, we got our tree tubes, our oak stakes, our plants, and our weed mats. We also organize volunteers to come plant the buffer if it's a big enough site that we think that we need extra hands. So we have the Leonta students here in this picture. They come out and help us every single fall and spring to plant a site. So to go back on what our materials are, to further describe them, we have tree and shrub tubes, which you can see in these pictures. So this picture on the left is a picture of a tree tube. As you can tell, it's taller and narrower, and the shrub tubes are shorter and wider. And these protect the tree and shrub from animal browse, competing vegetation, and weather events. And then we also have weed mats, which is this black mat right here in the right corner. And these protect the tree and shrub from competing vegetation. So it helps a lot with weeds. And then our oak stakes that you can tell right here and right there, they attach to the tree tube to keep the tree tube upright and stable. So what we have accomplished so far, to reiterate on what I said before, we don't have any minimum buffer width or length. We take smaller scale projects, larger scale projects, we take anything really. So in 2020, this past spring, we had 4,590 plants planted throughout 33 sites. So roughly we try and get 5,000 plants through the Trees for Tributaries program every single spring. So some of the trees and shrubs that we planted, it's all native. And so this is the list that we planted this past spring, but every single season it changes depending on what the soil and water conservation districts, what the landowners and municipalities would like to have planted on their property. But we had American sycamore, Boston fir, black cherry, the list goes on. And then for shrubs, we had American cranberry, arrowwood, buttonbush, elderberry, nannyberry, ninebark, and so on. So we have different types of projects. So some are rich with exclusion fence. So this is where if you have any animals on your property, we like to keep them away from the buffer so they don't destroy it. We work with Watershed organizations. So we've worked with Loon Lake organization and the Finger Lakes Land Trust. We work with private rural landowners. So as you can see, this landowner is helping us plant this site. We work a lot with parks. So this is one of our parks in Binghamton. It's called Jackson Park Pond. Vegetable farms and stream bank restoration projects. And we even work alongside wetlands and ponds if they show a flow path to connecting waters. So this is an example of one of our municipal land sites. So this is Hickory's Park in Owego. I showed a picture of the flooding at this park in 2004 earlier. So this is the site in 2016 when we planted it. And as you can see, there's a slope, so flooding could happen a lot here. But this is the site after we planted it in 2018. And as you could tell, the trees are already coming out of the tree tubes. And in this past fall and spring, we've actually taken off tree tubes because the trees have gotten that large. So it's looking great. So some other landowner perks of riparian buffers and wetlands is that it attracts pollinators, so it'll help a lot with anything else that you grow on your property. And you can even allocate some products from the trees and shrubs, such as berries. Some berries that we have planted this past spring that can be edible to humans are elderberries, raspberries, chokeberries, and cranberries. You can even develop maple syrup once the maple trees have developed. I've done some research on like other ecosystem services of the shrubs that we plant, and it seems as though people can make candles out of northern bayberry, which I thought was interesting. And seems like that's all we have so far. But if there's any questions, I'd like to answer those, and I put up my contact information.
Thanks, Taylor. I don't see that anybody has any questions so far, but this is the end of the presentation. So does anybody have any questions they would like to ask Taylor before we conclude our Watershed Wednesdays? Taylor, I just have a quick question. What width would you recommend for the riparian buffer if you could have any, if you could have an appropriate width, what would it be?
We would aim for 30 feet.
Okay, thank you. Is there no cost to the landowner or organization to be able to do the planting?
Oh, I don't know what just happened to the screen. Yes, there is no, the cost is free. So we plant all the trees for free. So we'll give you the trees and shrubs and all the materials that you would need for this. And all the assistance, it's all for free.
Okay, and then just to clarify though that Taylor's referring to the plants and materials The exclusion fence or any additional practice like that would have to come from a different funding source, whether it be the landowner or otherwise. Okay, it looks like that's it. Well, thank you for attending, and thank you, Taylor, very much for presenting on the Trees for Tributaries program.
Thank you all for coming.
All right, bye.
Bye.